I'm Safismani, and you're watching another episode of the Fulbright Women Podcast Season 1, where we bring to you the brightest women of Pakistan and share some of the amazing work that they're doing in their fields. Today we have Rida Fatima with us, who went to NYU on her Fulbright to get her master's in consumer and social psychology. And today we are talking to Rida about her experience being a female parent studying at NYU, the art of resilience, and the art of managing multiple roles at the same time. Hi, Rida, how are you?
Hello, Sophia. Thank you for having me over. I'm really excited and looking forward to an amazing discussion.
No, of course. I'm very excited about talking about, all your experiences and your takeaways from those experiences because those are the most important things, right? So let's just get right into it. I want to first
Mhm.
talk to you about if you could explain to us what is the experience like being a female parent, on Fulbright.
Okay, thank you for this question. I think it's a very important question that needs to be addressed. When I went on Fulbright, I didn't really get a chance to talk to somebody who was a parent student. There were a couple of people who were parent students, but then again, there was no such case where the female was gonna handle everything all by herself, all alone. So in my case, because my husband has a startup in Silicon Valley in Pakistan, Islamabad, he had nothing to do in New York City. So that meant that I will be by myself. And so this was quite an experience for me. I did not know beforehand how it'll go. I had an idea that obviously it's going to be very challenging, but then there was nobody that I could take suggestions from or take advice from, because there was no such case. There were a couple of people, but then they had either their husband with them or their mother or their mother-in-law in some cases. So
Mhm.
this was a unique case. And also, my son was only 5 months old when my master's actually started. Actually, my master's was supposed to start when he was only a few days old. But then, you're not allowed on the flight. And plus, I just had he was born, I had a C-section. And then, you have to take care of yourself and the baby. So I had to get a semester deferred. And that was also, so even before my program started, there was a lot that I had to think through. There was a lot that I had to pre-plan. Even then, sometimes things don't go as you plan, but then you try. And I'm so glad you're giving me this opportunity to talk about these things so that in future, maybe somebody who's in the same boat
We'll have
will
something, yeah.
can learn something from my experience or maybe get inspired, maybe get motivated further. So yeah, thank you for this question.
No, of course. So I understand you had to defer your first semester for your baby to be at the age that was, safe enough for you guys to travel together. Uh,
Yeah.
so what after, you deferred your semester, you were ready to fly for the next one. Tell me the story then onwards.
Yeah, even the story before that is quite there were lots of challenges.
Yeah.
It was a mixed feeling because I was really excited as well, but I was also mentally kind of aware that it's not going to be an easy path. There are definitely going to be challenges ahead. New York City, by the way, this was not my first time in US. I've been to US a lot of times and for academic and business and family related purposes before as well. But then to be in a big city like New York City all by yourself, now that was going to be quite an experience. And this time, as a parent student, now there is a child involved as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, even so basically when I made it to Columbia University and also NYU, but the thing is Columbia University offers you a year-long deferral. They don't offer you a semester deferral. But if you go, NYU does offer you a semester deferral, and they also offer you a year-long deferral as well. Depends on what you're looking for, what your case is. But then if I would have gotten a year deferral, that would have given me maybe more time to, that would have given my son and I more time to settle down, be more prepared. He would have been a bit bigger. He would have been 1 year old. But the thing is, then my Fulbright would have been canceled and I would have had to reapply. So
Reapply.
considering all of these factors, yeah, and then there was no, by the way, there was no guarantee that NYU will offer me a semester deferral. Columbia was out of option because they offer a year-long deferral anyway, so that's a no-no. But even with NYU, you have to, talk to their coordinator, you have to talk to the dean. There are certain policies and rules they have, just like any other university. And then you have to talk to them about your particular case, and then you have to wait. That wait period was also very, I was a bit nervous, but also excited. And also I was like, okay, let's see what happens. I might or might not get a deferral. But at that time I was that, all right, I'm inshallah gonna go and I'm gonna manage my son and my studies alongside. But there were so many questions unanswered. I didn't know of anyone who had applied for such a case or for such a request, and I didn't know how anybody else's experience went. So everything for me was very new, and hence very exciting, but also it made me nervous and a little bit stressed out as well, because the fear of unknown. We humans tend to be afraid of, when we don't know what's ahead of us, and when it makes us nervous and stressed out, but also excited a little bit. So I went through all of that as well. But anyway, when I finally heard back from them, and they were very cooperative, so I would really appreciate NYU for that. They were very understanding, very cooperative, and they try their level best to accommodate their students as best as they can. But then, even then, there were a few unfortunate things in my case, because, for example, there was no daycare center inside of NYU, and even if there was one, it didn't go with my schedule because my classes were in the evening, so it didn't make sense to put my child in a daycare, even if NYU did have a daycare. And when I got done with my degree, these are some of the suggestions that I gave them as well. That it's a well-reputed school, definitely one of the best schools in the world. But maybe there should be some sort of facility that accommodates parent student. But it was a very challenging experience, and one thing was for sure, I told myself that if I brave this challenge, then it's gonna definitely, I'm gonna be proud of it one day. And that's true. And everything was nothing was easy, even traveling, because I was traveling with, he was an infant when my master's started. It took him around 3 months to reach US, even though I booked a ticket for him, even though he had a valid US visa as well. But then there were concerns around the fact that, he was too young, he might catch pneumonia, or, we first have to find a baby-friendly apartment and then take him along.
Oh, wait, so you're saying despite the deferral, your baby wasn't able to travel with you. So you, the new mother, was in another country on a scholarship without your newborn kid. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but only for a while, like until I found a baby-friendly apartment. And this was very stressful for me, because I was not mentally prepared to not take my child along as I go. But
Rida, what is a baby-friendly apartment? Talk about that.
Yeah, in New York City, and I guess in any big city in US, you can't just have a child in an apartment if it's not, let's say, if it's not safe. If you have to first make sure, for example, if you're living in a shared setting, your housemate has to be comfortable with the fact that there's a baby in the apartment. There's so many factors you have to look into. If you've been to New York City, you would know it's not easy to find an apartment anyway. Now imagine somebody who's a parent student has a child with her. So, everybody has their own, not everybody would want to have a child in the house. And then if there are pets, so my housemate at that time, her name is Jessie. She's a really nice person. She's a very talented singer. But then, she had a dog in the house, and she was really afraid that the dog might bite my child, or her dog was not used to having kids around. So there was so many factors you have to look into. And then there was one, she had a big enough house for New York City standards. And there were other housemates as well that she would host sometimes in one of her extra rooms in the house. So she was also concerned about that. She was like, even if she's okay with having a baby in the apartment, maybe somebody that she wants to rent the room out to might not be comfortable with the baby. So it was not easy. It took me, and I kept my active research on. My husband helped me with that a little bit as well. So he took some time off his work and came to me and we were together trying to sort this out. But finally, we did find a baby-friendly apartment. But even when we found one, it's not easy. You know, I had to make sure that he was just a small baby. He's going to cry. He's going to be happy. He's going to giggle. He's going to do everything naturally as it comes to him. But yeah, you know, I had this on my mind that, okay, she's a singer. And then sometimes the music is so loud. Sometimes it's distracting for my child as well. And sometimes my child can be distracting for other, he can be, you know, might unconsciously disturb other people around. Even these tiny little experiences for other, let's say for my competitors in class, these extra things were not what they had to think about. Some of my competitors were literally living in the library. They would just go to their apartment just to maybe, you know, get fresh a little bit and would come back. And I would call it, they were literally living on campus, just so that they're just focusing on their studies. So yes, of course, for me, it was a challenge to be able to learn how to manage everything alongside. And I think in the end, it went like I'm happy that I managed to do it. I'm happy that I braved it. There were so many challenges on the way. I'm just telling you about the very simple, tiny little things that normally other students don't even have to think about. So yeah.
There are a lot of these physical challenges that we talked about. There's also, you know, how would you balance your studies and your role, role as a mother, all of that. And then there is a toll on mental, health, these challenges of mental health. Can you talk about that? Did it ever become challenging for you to just sustain yourself mentally?
That's a very important question, Safia, because I think if you're, I had a double majors degree. It was a tough program in itself. Some of my classmates were, some of my friends would share with me that they find it very hard and it's difficult for them to carry on. I would motivate them. I'd be like, you don't have to think about extra things. Look at me. I'm taking care of my kid. And the only time that I can study is at night, because I wanted to dedicate the day to my son so that he doesn't feel ignored or neglected. I was a very active and dedicated mom. So the day was dedicated to him, and at evenings I had my class, and I like taking care of my son, and I was taking care of him myself. The only time that I would hire a babysitter was, and hiring a babysitter is also another story. I used to have a hard time trusting anyone when it comes, and I still do. I have a hard time trusting people when it comes to my kids. So what I did was I started going to, so NYU has an amazing Islamic center. It's really good. It's one of the best in the city, no doubt. So I took special time out to, go there. I took my son along as well. And then I was observing who is a person here that I can trust enough to talk to, and ask her if she can babysit my baby while I'm in class. And I'll give her some, some extra pocket money. Doesn't hurt. She's a student. So yeah, it suits her as well. So that's how I did it. I never searched a babysitter on any website, because I was like, I don't know her. How do I trust her? Anyway, that's how I used to find babysitters. And it worked out fine, except that they were mostly students like me. And mostly they were either undergrad students or maybe, sometimes master's students, but mostly undergrad students. Now, the thing is, when I would have my exams, they would also have their exams. So literally, I've given some of my exams I literally gave with my son on my laps. Yeah, and I've done that as well. And I remember, so there's this course that I took along with so many other courses. There's this really interesting course that I took. It was consumer psychology. It's all about how consumers think and how, what could be how to bridge the gap between the buyers and the sellers, stuff like that. That's in short, that's what it's about. And the professor who was teaching consumer psychology was an amazing professor and a very accomplished woman. She was also the dean of the department. And I think, so she told us, it was, I think, only a couple of days before that semester was going to end. And she told us that she'll be announcing the result. And that day I couldn't find a babysitter like on time. I was in touch with one of the potential babysitters, but she couldn't come on time, and I had to take my baby to my class, and my professor was like kind of okay with it. But I, as a mom, was feeling very conscious. I didn't want my son to feel uncomfortable. He always loved going on campus with me, by the way. He was very friendly, very sweet, and he used to actually enjoy it. He was a kid. He didn't know what's going on, and he actually loved it that there's so many people that he's interacting with, and he likes going out. So it was kind of like an outing event for him. But my professor was very accommodating, and she let me have the baby in class. But then she told me, she announced that I had topped the class, but I think I had 99% marks. And I had topped the class. That was quite a moment. And then my class fellows came, and they were like really appreciative of the fact that I have topped the class, even though I'm a young mom as well, and I have a tiny baby to watch as well and take care of. So yeah, so I have good memories as well.
So I feel like it's funny because, well, it's not funny, but you were studying psychology, and while you were, getting this academic training, you were also getting a real life crash course on, this mental resilience. And it was like you
Yeah.
had to aid both of them.
Yeah, and it was Sophia. I now when I look back at how everything went by, I'm actually very happy and proud of myself. I'm satisfied. I'm proud of the fact that I did well academically, but I also took care of my son as best as I could. But at that time, when you're in the moment, when you're in a particular situation, at that time it's not easy, because at that time you're just in the fight or flight mode. You're just thinking of, okay, what do I do now? Okay, you have a solution oriented approach, but you also know that there are challenges ahead. So I was in that mode. And by the way, because I wasn't mentally prepared that it will take my son to arrive in US, it'll take him like 2.5 to 3 months. I wasn't prepared for that. I was mentally prepared, and I'd made, although my husband and I had even bought his ticket. So all I knew was he's going to come along with me, and that was the plan. But then, after my friends and family members, all of them, a lot of people around us suggest that first make sure that you find a baby-friendly apartment, someplace that is safe for the baby and you. And if you're going to share an apartment, somebody who will be okay with having a baby around on campus. Stuff like that. So figure those things out first. It's going to be really cold there, so you can't take, you can't take a risk when you have a baby and hop from one place to another with the baby, and then So we had to keep those factors in mind, and it took us like 2.5 to 3 months to figure those things out, find a baby-friendly apartment, and because my baby was away from me, so in these 2.5 to 3 months, I eventually faced postpartum depression, which is something, by the way, not unusual. A lot of young mothers go through postpartum depression, even if there was no stressful event. So sometimes it happens without any reason as well. Young mothers, and there's a lot of hormonal changes going on, and some women face it at the time of delivery. Some face it a couple of weeks after that. But it's not something uncommon. In my case, childbirth experience was perfectly all right. My baby was healthy. I was healthy. So everything was smooth. I was in a very, I felt really strong, and I was up for everything, up on my feet, very active. So that experience was fine. But during the time when I was away from my son, and I loved him a lot, and he was also very attached to me. I was a nursing mom as well. But during that time, I went through this temporary phase in which I experienced postpartum depression. And I remember the next day I had an exam, and a day before I just fell on my bed and I went unconscious, and I used to have headaches, and I would either eat a lot or wouldn't eat at all. And I would have a hard time sleeping, and I would just keep thinking about my son. And I became a little bit sensitive as well. I would miss him and pray a lot and cry. But also, and then my somebody so what Fulbright does is they assign you a person who takes care of you and who's in touch with you, and discusses all the logistics with you. And, so they don't just leave you alone. They do make sure that you're fine, and they keep a track of your records as well, how you're doing academically. They do take care of you. And in my case, that person was Mia Hansen, and she was very cooperative and very nice. So she did offer me that if I want to take a semester off, or if I want to take a couple of courses off and keep my load less, then I have an option. But I was like, no, I'll brave it. I know I can do it, and I'll do it. And I did. So, but it was not easy. But anyway, then I as well, even though a night before I was in hospital, and postpartum depression, and then they told me that it's not something unusual or uncommon. It's very common. A lot of young moms go through it. So this is not something, and this is not permanent. It's only a phase that you go through, but you have to. And then, unfortunately, my husband couldn't come to New York City at that time either, so I was alone as well at that time. But anyway, we were trying our level best to just quickly find an apartment that would be safe for my baby and I. Finally, my baby reached, I think it was 5th of April or something, and we were together. But nothing affected my performance academically, or it was not what I was going through personally. I would call it a battle. This was how difficult it was, but I braved it. I braved it, and I knew I will. So.
Rida, very interesting.
Sorry.
Yes, you braved it out, the entire thing, right? But in that moment, and now you can look back at it and feel like you're strong and brave about it. But when you're in that moment, like you earlier said, you have self-doubts, right? You don't know if you're going to make it. What was it like in your mind at that point when you're actually going through postpartum depression, and what took for it, for you to get out of it? Or did you just block it?
No, I did not block it. I'm a psychology student, so that helped. There were a lot of things that I knew. It's very interesting. I knew I'm going through postpartum depression as a young mom, and then there's a stressful event that has triggered postpartum depression most likely. But I also, because I had studied those things, and I could relate to a lot of things because of the professional and academic background that I was coming from. I knew, I was like, okay, Rida, this is what you're going through. And this is how you can help yourself. But it will be over. It's just a phase that you're going through. And in this phase, you have to be strong. So I was counseling myself a lot as well.
You were doing your own therapy as well as you were experiencing the whole thing.
I was telling myself this will be, but never for a single moment did I ever think I'll quit. I'm not a quitter. And even in that difficult, tough, it was very tough, Sophia. And there are lots of things that can't be discussed in a single discussion. But even when I was not going through postpartum depression, it's not easy. Even to travel with a toddler or an infant, it's not easy. I was carrying like a gazillion things with me, and my baby was, mashallah, very healthy and chubby and very heavy. So I was carrying I have one picture where I'm like carrying a gazillion things and I'm heading for my class. So even those tiny little things that are otherwise so simple for other people were quite a challenge for me. But anyway, I'm not a quitter. And in past as well, what I've done, I think I've learned the art of resilience, and this is something that you can learn. And the best person to teach you that is you. So I was, and awareness helps as well. I'm a well-read person. And also this was something that, I'd studied about. I'm a psychologist myself. But also other than that, my elder brother and my husband, they also helped me. My mom helped me a lot. My dad, he passed away last year. But at that time he was around, and he used to help me a lot. And he, when I was a kid, he used to call me Sher Beta. Sher means lion. in Urdu. And he used to call me Sher Beta. And, he would call me up and he would just, when you're in that stressful moment, it's not like you don't know whether you're strong or not, but it's just that a reassurance from friends and family that helps. So I was lucky in that sense, but unfortunately, I was missing them a lot. I was missing my husband. I was missing my siblings, my parents. They weren't around, and most of all, I was missing my son. He used to sleep with me. I used to do everything for him, even though I could have easily hired a babysitter. I could afford those things, but I would do those things out of love for him myself, and that also meant later on that I missed him terribly. So yeah,
So you went
but yeah,
through
those
all
things
of
helped.
that. You went through all of that, and you were brave through it all, and you developed this, this art of resilience. And then I kind of want to segue into your professional journey now, because then you somehow used all of that, and then your training, and kind of translated it into something that you're doing right now. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up. Yeah, so Sophia, to be very precise, I think exactly I was in the hospital. Like I told you, the next day I had exam, and I did well in that exam, by the way. But how I did it is I myself don't know. I think I was very strong, and I just kept telling myself that I've never been a quitter, and I will not quit now either, and I will try my best to brave through it. And I kind of knew I will, So, but when I was in hospital, I also knew it's not easy. A lot of my friends on campus would tell me that they were like, how are you doing it? Your husband is not here. You're not hiring babysitters as such, only just for class. Sometimes I've given my exams with my son on my lap. One or two or three times I've taken him to class as well. And my family couldn't come there. My husband had work in California or Islamabad, so he couldn't come often either. The only time he could come was when I had a break from semester anyway, like when, during the spring break or summer break. So they were really, they couldn't believe it. They were in disbelief. And also they were very, very inspired and motivated as well. And they used to, and one of my friend was from Hong Kong. And she told me that before she'd met me, she thought that women in Pakistan are, suppressed, can are either that's what she told me. She said that she always thought that women in Pakistan are maybe suppressed, or maybe they're too lazy to be talented, or maybe they are talented but they don't do much, or maybe they can't do much. So she had all of those misconceptions and overgeneralized ideas in her head. And then I felt really happy and proud as a Pakistani, not just as a mom or not just as a person. When she said it to me, she came to me and she said, you know what, after I've met you, I'm like, okay, wait, women from Pakistan are very, very strong actually. And they're very talented, and there's a lot they can do. So those words, so people like her were also, it's not like she was consciously or deliberately or directly trying to lift me up, and she didn't even know that I'm facing postpartum depression. But those statements and those words, that made my day. And I was like, okay, I'm such a proud Pakistani, and not just a proud person or a proud mom or a proud wife, a proud daughter, but a proud Pakistani. I've helped somebody clarify their misconception about women in Pakistan or Pakistan in general. So yeah,
That's
and yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. So those are I would say never underestimate people or circumstances or ideas, anything, anywhere. Just try your best, and don't block. You asked me earlier if I went into denial or if I wanted to, if I braved it. I went for this option where I thought, okay, and I was aware, okay, this is what I'm going through, and okay, this is how I'll brave it. So I had a plan on mind, and I also knew it's not going to be easy. I told myself, look, it's easier said than done. It's not going to be easy, but stay put, stay strong. You have to do it. So those things help. Your family and friends around you can help. And
Is that what you teach at Therapy Impact?
Oh yeah. So I was in hospital, and that was the first time when I thought, you know what? When I'm done with my degree, one of the things I'm definitely gonna do is that I'm gonna help other women overcome their challenges, and it could be any challenge. Maybe they're just going through some stress. Maybe it's just postpartum depression. Maybe it's a long-term thing like clinical depression. But whatever the case be, I'm gonna add or contribute. There's so many organizations already, by the way, that are helping women with mental health issues, or maybe just maybe even if some woman is not facing a health challenge, just to stay on track, just to stay motivated, just to stay strong. We need to have more of those projects. So I came up with this, as I promised myself. I came up with this therapy impacts. It's called Therapy Impact, and we are not linked with any other organization. We're an independent organization. We're not a project of any other organization. So recently somebody asked me if we are linked with Therapy Works, and I clarified. I said, no, 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 we are not linked with Therapy Works at all. We are an independent organization. And it's an independent project. And it's a lot like Uber for psychologists. So basically, so I knew that there are, and mashallah, there's a lot more awareness about mental health issues now compared to, let's say, a couple of years ago. And I knew, and I'm, by the way, also doing so many other things as well. So this was not the only thing that I was doing. But I really wanted to do it because I promised myself when I was in hospital that I'll help women stay strong. And, Safia, unfortunately, the thing is that when you catch cold, you're going to cough, or you might have a runny nose, for example. So you can see those things and you would know, okay, I'm not feeling well and I need to go to a doctor. But when you're faced with some mental health challenge, that is very difficult to admit to, that is very difficult to see through, because it's something that's not manifested. It's something that's not obvious. It's something that's not, something that you cannot see. It's in your head. It's your thought process. It's related to your emotions, but they're just as important as any physical illness or any physical health challenge that you might be faced with. So I was thinking on those lines, and I was thinking, okay, how will my project be different from so many other projects that already exist? So one of the things that I did a little bit of research and a little bit of I walked myself through the customer journey and things like that. And then I realized that we need more projects and more organizations who can help connect right type of psychologists with the right type of clients. So sometimes what happens, it's the same. I'll give you an analogy. It will be easy for you to get. For example, if you are having heartaches, but you go to maybe an ophthalmologist, so that'll be wrong, even though the ophthalmologist is a highly qualified ophthalmologist, let's say, but he won't be able to fix your heartache. You need to go to a cardiologist. So these were some of the loopholes that I've thought that it would help if there are more people. I'm not saying that there's nobody working on those things, but it would help if more people were working on those things. So I'm like an Uber. I call myself Uber. I call this project kind of like an Uber for psychologists. So, connecting the right type of psychologists with the right type of clients. So I'm doing that. And I'm also conducting counseling sessions as well. And so far, I'm only dealing with women. But in future, maybe, the project has picked up momentum and it's going good now. Even though I didn't have a lot of time to market it properly, didn't have a lot of time to talk about it in a lot of forums, but it's picking up momentum. And the best thing about this project is that most of the clients that come to me are referred cases. Somebody who can. So I'm a Fulbright scholar. There's a when you're a Fulbright scholar, people do trust you. They trust your abilities even before they know you. And once they talk to you, once they know you, that helps further. They see for themselves if they can trust you or not. So my dealings are, I've gotten a lot of cases based on the trust factor, through word of mouth, even though I couldn't actively market this project, and maybe in future I will, and I'll take more time out for this project as well. So in short.
And before we part ways, it's all beautiful and it's very inspirational, like all of your friends around you and your family has told you. I think even I'm proud, and anyone who's going to be listening to your story would be very proud of you for, um, just being confident in yourself and your abilities to have this sense of resilience that, you can overcome any challenges. So kudos to you on that. Before we part ways, I want to ask a very important question. How's your baby
Hmm.
doing?
He's mashallah amazing. He's very sweet, very loving, and a very friendly baby. So yeah, and he also has a sibling now. I have my second child now, who's 5 months old. So we are
MashaAllah.
enjoying. Yeah, I'm enjoying that. And when both
Perfect.
of them sleep, I'm also working on projects when they sleep. So yeah, it's good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm not going to keep you away from them for too long. And thank you so much for getting in the conversation with me today. It was a lot of fun. It was very informative. A lot to learn from you and from your story. And like you said, when we started this conversation, hopefully when this conversation goes out, there will be other Fulbrighters, other women who are not Fulbrighters, who will pick up inspiration and will learn a lot from your story. Thank you so much, Rida, for doing this with me today.